Hey everybody, it is the November edition of the Mixed Media Menagerie Challenge, an awesome challenge started by Laura, Nicole, and Erin. I was so thrilled when I was asked to be the November guest artist. So for this month, we are using earth tones, gouache paint, and a toothbrush. I did not have any gouache paint at that point. I had never used it, so I went right online and ordered some just for this challenge. Here's some supplies I was going to be using: Mod Podge, some white gesso, gouache, and some collage papers. And of course, a toothbrush. I always start with a layer of collaging. My paper choice is usually book pages, old book pages. I love to collect old books, so I have a lot of old book pages. I'm using a journal that was made for me by a dear friend, Angie Spencer. On Instagram, she is God's Girl Angie. I love the size of this journal, and I prefer to work on 2 pages at a time. So in my mind, I had this vision of putting some collage papers out horizontally at the bottom of the page, almost kind of like doing some type of a landscape. So that's just what I'm doing here. I'm not really thinking too much about it. I'm just ripping some papers and slapping them down with some Mod Podge. Now I'm adding a layer of clear gesso over top of both the pages. I oftentimes use some kind of medium with water, whether it's coffee or watercolor, or the gouache paint is like watercolor. So I did not want the whatever I'm using to seep through to the other side of the pages. So doing a layer of clear gesso helps to protect those pages. There's my nasty little coffee dish. It usually dries out on me, and then I have to add some water to it. I thought that I really wanted to use the toothbrush here and use it with the coffee and just kind of add some lines to go along with the horizontal lines of my collage papers. I was trying to do some splatters there a few different ways, but it didn't work out unless I actually rubbed my finger along the bristles. Here I'm just adding some white gesso along the edges of the collage papers, just to kind of really help them to settle into the pages, so there isn't like harsh lines, so they look more like they belong there together. I tend to use my fingers a lot when I'm using gesso or acrylic paint. I feel like I have better control. I know a lot of people use brushes or like a palette knife for their gesso and paint, but I just prefer the look of when I'm using my fingers, and maybe it taps into that child that's still somewhere inside. Speaking of children, you might hear my little 3-year-old in the background, or at least the show she's watching. It's hard for me sometimes to find the right time to record a video or do a voiceover, so just FYI. Here I am using a tea bag, and I wanted to stamp on it, so I decided to use the Tim Holtz stamp set that I had recently gotten on Amazon Prime Day. It's called Ledger Script. I love stamping on tea bags. I just find that it gives such a neat look on in my artwork. I did want to be sure to dry the ink before I attached it to my page with Mod Podge so that the ink wouldn't get all muddied. I certainly didn't want that. Using a tea bag is very similar to like tissue paper or a napkin. A lot of times you can see what is behind it. You know, it has a bit of transparency. I just like the color, and obviously it's a used tea bag, so there's going to be like some different colors, you know, in the paper itself. I'm going in with a little bit more gesso around the edges of the tea bag, just so that, you know, it meshes well with the background and doesn't just look like it's floating there. I grabbed a couple scrap pieces of a curtain that I had that I actually ripped up to add into my, you know, horizontal collage there at the bottom. I just wanted to add a little bit more like texture, to have something lift off the page a little bit. Since gouache paint was one of the things we had to use for this challenge, I honestly had never used it. Like I said earlier in the video, I just got it for this challenge. I did attempt one other video before this, but I didn't like the way it turned out. So this is only my second attempt at using gouache paint at all. I figured I would just use it similar to how I would use acrylic or watercolor. I chose this cerulean blue, if that's even how you say it, probably not. I really like this blue. To be honest with you, I had to look up on Pinterest what colors were actually earth tones. My brain just could not think of what colors were earth tones besides like neutrals, browns, creams. So I did need a little bit of help there. Originally, when I had the plan to do kind of a landscape style for this, I wanted to paint some flowers coming up out of that bottom collaging. But then as I was going along, I decided to paint some branches coming out of the right side. I was using the gouache paint in burnt sienna and burnt umber. There's something so relaxing and lovely for me about painting branches. I don't know what it is. I just really enjoy it. My plan was to paint the leaves actually with a paintbrush, but then I was like, hey, wait a second. A toothbrush is something I need to use. Why not dip this in the gouache paint and make my leaves that way? I really love the way it turned out. I dipped it in the yellow ochre, and there was still some of the coffee on the toothbrush, and I just really enjoyed doing these leaves and the way that it looks, and it just reminds me of those changing leaves in the fall, which is right now. I think we've hit our peak already here in Pennsylvania. So some of the leaves are starting to brown or they're falling off the trees. But I really like the way the leaves turned out with that toothbrush. I did go in here a little bit with the coffee, as it's like a darker brown, to define the tree branches a little bit more. But then I'm like, oh, gouache paint, I need to use that. So I just dipped right into the tube of the burnt umber, to add a little bit of depth to the branches. I'm a huge fan of splatters, so I just went in with I'm actually not sure if it was black ink or if it was coffee. I kind of feel like it might have been black ink that I just probably put in a water bottle cap and added a tiny bit of water and splattered that way. I feel like splatters always finish off the page. I did want to go in a little bit with my black pen just to kind of outline the branches a little bit more, just to create a little bit more depth. I don't know that you can really see it in the video that much. Maybe at the end when there's a close-up, you can see that a little bit more. But I also wanted to add some scribble marks down along the edges of the pages and the bottom, the collage papers. Please be sure to watch the videos of the other amazing artists, Laura, Nicole, and Erin. Check them out on YouTube and see their take on this month's challenge. If you do follow along with us, don't forget to use the hashtag so we can all see what you created. Thank you so much for watching, and happy creating.